You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, welcome to the Middle Age Movies Podcast. Three guys saying men of our age need a little snort in the evening. Heats the boilers. My name is Tim, and my podcasting partners are...
Minister Matt.
Joey.
All right, Joey, why don't you tell us what movie we're playing at the picture show tonight?
Tonight we are watching the 1962 thriller, Cape Fear, starring Robert Mitchum.
I think you might have that incorrect, sir.
The other Robert Mitchum movie. Tonight we are watching the 1955 movie, The Night of the Hunter, number 937 from the book of 1001 Movies You Should Watch Before You Die, written by Davis Grubb, James Agee, and Charles Laughton, directed by Charles Laughton and starring Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters, and Lillian Gish.
All right. Well, thanks, Joey. Well, guys, I have to start off by saying that this was the first time that I've ever seen this film. I was actually under the impression that this was going to be more of a Western picture. Little did I know that I realized that this is a Depression-era noir film. I did find the story rather captivating. I certainly have a few questions about what's going on in this movie. But before we do, I am interested to know if you guys have seen this movie before. Tim, is this the first time you got to see this film?
Yeah, this is definitely the first time. In fact, I hadn't heard of this film until we pretty much brought it up in the book and voted to cover it. Wasn't even aware this one existed, so first time viewing it, kind of excited to discuss it with you guys.
How about you, Joey? Was this the first time you got to view Night of the Hunter?
Yes, I think I've seen little bits and pieces of it over the years. And I was confused about it, years later when Cape Fear gets remade by Scorsese. He takes elements of Robert Mitchum's character from Night of the Hunter and blends it with his character from Cape Fear, including the hand tattoo, Hate and Love. And so I was confused going back and watching the older Cape Fear, and I'm like, where's the hand tattoos? I know I've seen that actor with the fucking tats on his knuckles. It's like, I thought I was having a Mandela effect moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's a different movie, and Scorsese blended them together.
Yeah, I thought I had seen the Love-Hate on a much later film as well. I didn't remember it being Cape Fear necessarily. I was a little thrown off when I seen it in this one because I'm like, I thought that was something that didn't come out in the 80s or 90s. Sure enough, now that you mentioned it, it was Cape Fear.
I know where you saw it, Tim. You saw it on The Simpsons, where they had to put the strong A because the characters only have a total of 4 fingers, 3 fingers and a thumb.
Right.
And then they had the LUV on Sideshow Bob.
Yeah. That's right. It's there too. I mean, it's all over the place. It's such a piece of pop culture now. It's just ingrained. They use this everywhere. So I've seen it over and over again for sure.
Spike Lee flipped the script on it with what's Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. In Do the Right Thing, they have a moment where he kind of steals a little bit of Robert Mitchum's he's explaining the love and the hate. But instead, they did it with like brass knuckles that said it.
Right.
It's like completely different. Like when the guy's talking about it, like these gold, well, I guess they're brass. They look goldish in the movie.
Okay.
And I didn't know any of that until they were interviewing a guy who worked on Do the Right Thing and many other films. And he would end up, kind of finishing off his career doing like The Walking Dead of all. And he spoke a lot about this movie, how cinematographers are kind of like, it's a favorite of theirs because the way it was shot and the contrast and all that. So this was my first viewing, by the way, all the way through.
Right.
And I couldn't watch it any better.
Yeah, I know before the cameras were rolling, we were discussing the difference between the Tubi version that I had watched and your 4K copy. And I honestly think that they did a great job on Tubi with it.
Yeah, it still looks good.
I was curious if Robert Mitchum ever opened his shirt up and on his chest if he had tattooed Die Bart Die.
Nice.
It's the name of Gregory Peck's character.
Oh, okay. All right. Doing the research for this movie that Martin Scorsese, the Coen brothers, Spike Lee found this movie very influential. We'll get to it later, but the word abide is definitely used by Dude Lebowski because of this movie.
It's a weird film to come out when it did, and I think that's why it wasn't successful. when you think of the 50s, you don't think of a really dark and evil story like this. And that's what this is.
Yes.
And it's really morbid. And part of the reason is because it's based something in truth, because the name of the characters of an alias of a real human being who committed some murders. So it's also a true crime film.
Yeah, it's this Depression era noir film, much like the other Depression era films that we had talked about before, like Touch of Evil, and of course Bonnie and Clyde. So, watching this, I had a lot of elements of those movies kind of popping in every once in a while.
If it's Grapes of Wrath, if you got the shit scared out of you, violence towards children.
I don't think my experience with this film is as endearing as your guys' experience, because I felt that this is going to be another one of those movies where I think the book is probably far superior to this film, because I think the premise of this film is outstanding. I think the idea of it is dark and foreboding, and for its time, it was something that they didn't do. But I think why it wasn't received well really sits at the feet of Charles Landon. That's because he comes from a theater background. I think that's how he approached this. I think it falls flat because of that. To me, it's not exactly disjointed. It still feels like a stage play. It's filmed as if it was on a stage because he decided that he wanted to do it all on, film studio stage instead of going out to real locations and stuff. It just felt a little off the center for me. But the story as a whole is terrifying. And I think that's what endears us to people eventually and gets them watching it down the road. But yeah, I could see why in the early days it would dissuade people, because we watched a lot of dark movies from, that era and before. People watched them. So I don't think that was what dissuaded them. I think it was more just the way that it was produced. At least that's my feeling on it.
Interesting. I wonder if this is a foreshadowing to what we're going to hear later with your death clock.
Probably.
Anyway, well, before we get too far off tangent then, so Tim, since you're our official hawker this evening, what do you have in mind for a synopsis?
All right, Matt. So you were complaining, the last time we did a podcast that I've been being pretty consistent lately. I'll change it up on you. You're going to have to work at it. So tonight, I would like you to do the synopsis as Harry Powell, as he preaches the story of Right Hand, Left Hand.
Oh.
So get your Jimmy Swaggart on there, sir, and bring it on home.
All right. Ah, little lad, I see you're staring at my fingers. Would you like me to tell you the little story of right hand and left hand? The story of good and evil? H-A-T-E, hate. This left hand that a man named Ben Harper justified the robbing of a bank during the Great Depression, taking his lives of two innocents. L-O-V-E. You see these fingers, dear hearts? These fingers have veins that run straight to the soul of a man. The right hand, friends, the hand of love. It was this love that brought me to convince my cellmate, Ben Harper, to give up his secret hiding place of this bloody money so that I may do the Lord's work with it. But he refused to repent his evil deed and to take the secret to his grave. But the Lord revealed his secret while he talked in his sleep. His children were the keepers of his sins. Now watch, I'll show you the story of life. Those fingers, dear hearts, are always a warring and a tugging, one against the other. Now watch them. Old brother left hand is a fighting. It looks like love's a goner. But wait a minute, hot dog, love's winning. Yes, sirree, for I sought Ben's poor widow Willa Harper and his two children, John and Pearl. In marriage, I will cleanse Willa of her evil ways and force her children to reveal where Ben's evil money is hidden. When that is done, it's love that's won, and old left hand hate is down for the count.
All right. Very nicely done, Matthew. Very nicely done.
This is going to be our final film that we're reviewing in 2025. So, folks, I just want to first off by saying thank you for listening to our podcast. Obviously, next week we'll have something special for you because we'll be talking about Christmas. But before we get to that, I also want to say happy 70th anniversary to Night of the Hunter, because this came out in 1955. All right. So, gentlemen, You ready to dive into this film?
Let's do it.
So this movie opens up and we get a rather interesting intro with Mrs. Cooper and some children as she's talking about some Bible verse. And it felt very much like the opening sequence to It's a Wonderful Life, where you have, Clarence, the two angels talking, but now we have headshots of all the children and Mrs. Cooper. And when I first watched this, I'm like, who is this lady? What does she have to do with this movie? Why is she talking? What's this have to do with anything? And then we zoom into a house where we see basically a woman's legs as we go into the building. And it kind of threw me off because I thought that maybe that woman talking was the woman lying on the stairs of this house.
It's kind of surprising that you brought up It's a Wonderful Life because I don't think they do it as well as It's a Wonderful Life. But it was actually enacted a little better there. Although it's interesting because it feels like a really early version of almost green screen because you're just seeing those kids' heads kind of bobbing nowhere and then a star field around them.
Floating heads just floating in space.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to include in the film. I guess it helps kind of build up into the religious aspects of this film, if you will.
Okay.
I think that was the point, was kind of her, talking in a religious manner that will, lend itself to our main character who is a quote unquote preacher, but is really a wolf in sheep's clothing. I still will stand by. I think the way that they enacted it, It's a Wonderful Life, was just a little bit better produced, I guess.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, it kind of dawned me that she's kind of, as Rick would say, foreshadowing the entire premise of the movie.
I wasn't sucked into the movie yet, and I was looking down at my phone, and I didn't pick up until you started talking about this, and I started rewatching it. I was like, oh yeah, she's talking to the fucking kids. I was like, I completely just missed out on that. And then we get this aerial shot. It's like, I guess they were in a helicopter, and you're seeing these kids running around. So that's interesting for the time, is you usually don't get a big aerial shot like that. But then when I see the legs, that's when I got pulled in, and I was like, oh shit, Robert Mitchum's killed somebody. And this is, I don't even think it gets brought up again.
No.
Until the end of the movie when I had to Google Bluebeard, because I don't know what the fuck a Bluebeard is. And he's even talking about it, swindling people out of the last money out of their sugar, jar, hidden in the sugar jar. But I just it didn't occur to me yet that I had to read online is he's a serial killer. This is a pattern of him taking advantage of women and then offing them.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was weird that these kids are playing hide and seek around a house that kind of looks abandoned. And I appreciated the aerial shot too. I don't know if it was a helicopter. I bet they just had some kind of crane or something, but just they're playing around this house. I mean, obviously none of them live there because figure one of those kids would be like, I haven't seen my parent for a while. That's kind of weird, but all right. And then all of a sudden they find her. So I think that this had been perpetrated long before these kids were here playing. And then they just happened to find the body after the fact, after he had done the deed and left. But that was kind of my take on it. I don't know how you guys.
Yeah. Having been an asshole kid and witnessed asshole kids recently, we did play in other people's yards, even though they weren't home or did condone it or were even friends with their kids or anything. I think they were just looking for a hiding place to play the game.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them lived there.
No. And abandoned houses are a magnet for kids. I don't, just,
yeah.
It's someplace you're not supposed to go and who knows what's in there and it may be cool. It may not be. I remember we had one down the street from us when I was a kid. And there was all kinds of, rumors amongst the kids that it was haunted and stuff because the two people that lived there actually came to horrifically tragic ends. After that, there was no kids and the place sat abandoned for years. So there was always people breaking in and going in because everything was in there. It was forever someplace that all the adults were trying to chase us out of.
Yeah. I didn't get the impression right off the bat that it was Robert Mitchum's character that killed him because I was just slightly distracted by what I'm seeing, that it didn't dawn on me that he actually killed that woman. And again, I thought that woman was the woman talking at the beginning of the movie.
Well, and I don't think it connects real easy either because we see him next having his discussion with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of doing his little talk with him and stuff. He's in that car and we'll find out just a little bit after that, lo and behold, that's not his car. But apparently it didn't come from that place, that they didn't tie those two things together. So I think of the pattern that we'll see with him where he drifts in and out and he just takes things as he needs them to
Right.
help him achieve short-term goals where he's at, or to help him, move along down the road better than Heel the Toe Express.
Yeah. Interesting way that the directors decided to show us these sequences and to kind of introduce us to the Powell character. And we don't find out that the car is stolen until much later on, when he's actually sitting in like a striptease place, and the cop comes in and taps on his shoulder and says, "Hey, do you own this car?" And then we get this cool like fade out and fade into to a trial, and I'm like, "Oh, well, he stole the car. Okay, that's kind of interesting."
Yeah. And it was the car scene that kind of already immediately kind of pulled me out of the picture a little bit, because that's such a staged thing to have him having this weird little conversation out loud with God.
Yeah.
And just the things that he says, again, it feels very play-like to me. It's something that you can see somebody sitting in a fake car on a stage, kind of having that conversation to help get you from, this scene to this next scene in the play kind of thing. And it had that kind of feel to it. It was just odd. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it.
It was like an exposition scene right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like there was quite a bit of that.
What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, he was having an outer monologue. Given that he's insane, it's not out of the question. It is very theatrical. As the movie goes along, like there's lots of parts of it that kind of seem like a dream, that they borrow things from film noir. They do have a lot of hard shadows and set decor, so that, things start looking kind of almost otherworldly. That is something you normally would probably see in a play. So I kind of get where Tim's coming from, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on is, when you're first watching this up until he's in the courthouse, do you think that he really is a preacher?
Well, I know that he's playing a piece of shit, right?
Right.
And now whether he adopted this persona or he actually had some preacher training, I don't fucking know. My guess is he just sat it in a bunch of sermons and he picked it up and went with it.
Yeah. See, I didn't believe he was a preacher at all from the get-go, just because of the weird monologue conversation that he's having with the Lord. No preacher's going to talk like that.
Yeah.
Although he's weird, like he is definitely disturbing. He has these rigid lines that some things are acceptable, which we will learn. Murder for him, not a big deal, especially if he thinks he's taking care of the wicked. But then again, they're not always wicked. He just makes them wicked and kind of uses that as justification. Not to mention when he's sitting in that theater, pulls that knife out. He's like, "I can't kill them all, Lord," or whatever. So he's against depravity, things like that. He seems like he has an aversion to sex, which we'll learn later. Yeah, he's definitely got some weird, hard lines in the sand that he's kind of living by. I don't know too many preachers that are running around with switchblades.
Right.
So, that pretty much gives it away too. Although I can't say that. I did know one priest who had a switchblade, only because somebody gave it to him, and I don't remember the circumstances, but I know he had one, at least for a little while. I don't know if I'm assuming he turned it into police or something, but he did have one. But I don't think he was going and shivving people with it.
I think he watched this movie and wanted to be like Robert Mitchum.
Maybe. There might have been some of that going on. I have no idea. Yeah, it's pretty obvious from the get-go that he is not a real preacher. I did get that sense at all. Did you, man?
No, I didn't see him as a true preacher.
Not a traditional one.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to what Miss Cooper was saying at the beginning about false prophets. And I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see where they put this in there to lead us to, Powell is not a true preacher or a true pastor.
Well, I think that thing at the beginning too with Miss Cooper is it's really her making those statements after the fact of this whole incident, because when you see those kids, 2 children are in there.
Yeah.
Pearl's in there, and so is her brother. Obviously, she is talking about what's transpired throughout this film at kind of the very beginning. She's setting up, like, as you said, beware of, wolves in sheep's clothing, stuff like that. So she's kind of setting up for what you're about to see.
Almost like another Depression era story called Our Town. Huh.
I would argue that this man is a wolf in shepherd's clothing.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Trying to be the shepherd.
Very nice. Well, speaking of leading gentlemen, we then come to the Harpers and we see, Pearl and John playing outside, and then Ben Harper shows up, and it took me a hot minute to place the guy's face. I'm like, who is that? And it's Peter Graves. And I'm like, wait, it's Mr. Mission Impossible? And it was surprising to see him in this role. I'm like, I'm so used to seeing him as a white-haired old man, and here he is looking like a young guy. He shows up and he's got, what he robbed from the bank, which was like $10,000, which in that time for the Great Depression, that's a lot of money.
It's like $220,000 today.
Yeah.
That's some serious cash. That's why everybody wants this money.
Yeah. It's $10,000. And when he says that, I'm expecting like a sack full of money, but he's just holding a stack of cash and he's got to try to hide it. He finally thinks of a place to hide it. He has John and Pearl, swear that they won't reveal where it's at. And if they play their cards right, John will have that money for the rest of his life. He'll be all set. Don't even tell your mom. And I'm thinking, wow, this guy is serious. But while he's doing all this, the cops are showing up. What's taking the cops so freaking long to arrest this guy? Because he's having like a 10-minute conversation with his kids, and we just seen the cops pull up.
His Model T was supercharged.
It kind of threw me off because I'm waiting for these guys to like jump off from off frame and tackle him. Or
it was almost Keystone Cop-ish a little bit, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
it did seem a little off. But I mean, I guess if you got in the car and had a good enough jump on them, again, we're pretty much looking at Model Ts or maybe whatever the 30s equivalent that is, whatever the next version was. Those aren't exactly super fast cars. If you are ahead of anybody else in one of those, they're not going to overtake you. They all move at about the same speed. So. Have you ever gone to Six Flags and you're on the little, Model T car ride there?
Yeah.
All those cars run at the same speed unless you stop and let somebody catch up so they can smash you. You're not outrunning anybody and you're definitely not laughing. So yeah, it's kind of the same idea.
Right. But the cops show up and the cops have like newer cars. They actually looked like a V6 or something in those vehicles.
Later, it is a Model T. They literally say Model T
right
towards the end, but I don't know what his original car is that he gets arrested
We're
for.
talking about the one Ben's in, though, not the one that the preacher's in.
That would, that might be the same car because Ben's car is the wife's car, which she finally,
Oh, yeah.
she takes her final ride in.
I think that was an old car that was already sitting out there, though.
Yeah.
As we'll learn, it takes quite a bit to turn that damn thing over.
Oh, you heard of? Oh, with all the smoke?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was their old vehicle.
I was like, is it falling outside? It's like, no, that's engine noise.
But so then Harper gets arrested and he gets sent to jail, and that's where he ends up meeting Powell. This movie has a lot of elements of other movies in it. Ben, Harper, and Powell in their cell. I had some feelings of Shawshank Redemption happening with Powell showing his switchblade, how he said that he was able to smuggle this in. And I'm thinking, okay, so did
he keistered it?
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, I've got that exact switchblade, and there's no way I'm putting that up my keister. I mean,
might be a bad idea.
No, but
well, it's not a stiletto, right? It doesn't come straight out. Like it's got to fold out, so he might be able to, keep that from popping out.
I've had one open in my pocket before. Not a good time. And the problem is on one of those is that you have the button and then there's a lock, but it's just this little bitty slider like on the side, this little piece of metal that you push to kind of engage this lock on the blade. It's easily moved. And I would venture to say anybody that's digging around to go in the reverse manner to remove it would probably move that and hit that button, and that thing opens up, like a scissor inside of you. Now you're trying to instead of pull out, basically a cigar shaped object, you're now trying to pull the letter V out of your keister with the V side pointing outwards. So yeah, you're gonna do some serious damage. And even at that, they're up at the front. There's kind of like these 4 little pegs because one of them's what you use to actually you press to unlock the blade and to close it.
Mm-hmm.
So those aren't going to be fun going in and or out. So this is not conducive to being anally hidden. Let's put it that way.
I just figured out the whole movie, dude. He's impotent because he keistered his favorite killing switchblade and he lanced his
prostate.
He lanced his prostate.
That could be.
Now he's impotent, and it adds to his violent frustration, and that's also why he doesn't actually sexually engage with women. And then he had to express himself in the girly place, the striptease place, and he, if you notice, he flipped the switchblade as of like a phallic symbol of an erection.
Right. I was just going to say
because that is his erection now.
I think we drilled down to it. I was going to say that is his new phallic symbol.
Wow.
It still doesn't explain why, in the other film, the guy was so sexually frustrated, but, At least this one, we know. Bonnie and Clyde's still a mystery as to why that guy didn't want to ever have sex. Because as far as I know, he was not keystering a switchblade.
Right. Well, I gotta say, Joey, I love the fact that you've already psychoanalyzed Powell even within the first 10 minutes of the movie.
We got them all figured out, man.
Yeah.
Sexually frustrated serial killer.
Can you imagine one of the screws finding that thing? Hey, bend over, we got to check you out. And he's up there, he's like, what is this thing? He hits that button. He's like, well, you deserve that, you son of a bitch. Just opens that thing up we'll let you dig that thing out.
This man's anus bit my finger.
There's a beaver up there or something. It's gnawing at my finger.
Of course, after two con men talk in the prison cell, Ben Harper winds up talking in his sleep, and so Powell kind of gets an idea as to who might know where the money is that he stashed. And I think Ben was rather clever in the fact that he gags himself before going to bed.
Yeah, I had to watch that twice to figure out why did he just stick that in his mouth, and it was so he couldn't mumble in his sleep anymore.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you're in a prison, do you really want to do that?
Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe you do.
Why didn't he kick his ass either? Because I know he had a knife, but he's bigger than him. He threatened him.
Yeah.
And he's getting a little close for comfort.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think that was a homoerotic moment.
Do you want to take on a guy with a switchblade, that's all covered in poop? No, I don't think so.
As soon as he puts that poopy smelling, I'm sure he cleaned all the poop off it, but he could probably smell it. He's like, that's a poopy switchblade. I don't want to get stabbed by that. I'm going to get an infection. But you're going to die very soon.
So he stink palmed the knife.
He stink palmed the knife. That smell never comes off.
So shortly after that, we see that Ben Harper has now been hung. Again, that point where, like you had said, Tim, where it feels like a play, where we get an exposition scene where we hear two guards talking as one's on his way home, and we get the whole exposition of him telling his wife that poor Ben Harper, he's dead, but they never found the money. This particular scene did feel like a play, very much like an exposition to just kind of move the story along without actually showing us Ben Harper's ultimate demise.
But I don't think in 1955, I don't think they could show him hang somebody.
I don't know, though. There's some Westerns from the 50s where I think that'd probably be the 60s.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the 50s had them. It was probably always a shadow that you would see, or the rope kind of dangled, but you wouldn't see just the rope. You wouldn't see anything else.
It would have been a silhouette at best.
Well, even if you had a shot of him walking up to the gallows and maybe an angle from the camera looking through the noose as he's walking up to it, and then cut away.
Yeah, but I mean, it effectively, you knew what happened, and I think the idea of the disgust of the task, when the warden comes in and she's like, well, you don't really need to be there for all of those or whatever.
Yeah,
they could have shown it, because I just looked up the Two Mouseketeers, a color Tom and Jerry short that would have played before films. It's a one-reeler. We experienced it, as part of a half hour of collection of shorts, but it would have played before a movie. That was in 1952. And in the Two Mouseketeers, a fucking cartoon with one of the most morbid endings ever, they show a shadow of the guillotine that supposedly executed Tom for failing to nabbing the Mouseketeers. And so the cartoon cat got fucking decapitated. I think you could show a silhouette of a man hanging.
But it's a cartoon you're showing the children. That don't count. It's fine. The children bounce back. They're resilient.
It's a lovable cat.
Yeah. The children abide and they endure.
There we go. Yeah. See, we were taught this, if nothing else, in this movie. We were taught that.
Yes. And speaking of these children abiding and enduring, the next scene we see is John and Pearl. And I think this scene kind of really helps reinforce the fact that, they're now fatherless. They're now children to a single mom, and they're ostracized by the local children. The children are singing that little rhyme, and poor Pearl doesn't know what's going on, and so she starts to sing it as well. And John's like, "No, don't sing that," because it's basically about their dad.
Kids are jerks. Let's face it, they're just jerks.
Yeah.
Ha ha! Your dad got hung by the state.
And of course, watching this, I'm like, man, it kind of reminds me of my childhood about how evil the kids were that I grew up around.
I was going to say, your dad did get hung. What are you talking about, Matt? I met your dad. He's well and alive.
Yes, he is. The most I got hit was just pelted by rocks as a child, okay? I got stoned a lot.
Oh, I've heard that about you. Been hitting a lot of that bag-in pipe weed, have you?
Back to the children. So they're walking home from apparently not going to school now because that weird bag lady looking woman that has no other role in this movie just starts kind of yelling at them and telling them to get lost. They of course walk to their mom's work, which is an ice cream parlor named Spoons. Can you maybe hit the nail on the head for, I mean, what else could you call the ice cream parlor? Baskin Robbins?
That was really bad, man. That was really bad.
Sorry.
So if her name's not really Icy, what is it? They only call her Icy.
Good question. Yeah, her name's Icy. Her husband's name is Walter, and Willow works for them. I don't know. It's an ice cream parlor, but isn't it also like a soda fountain shop or something? It seemed kind of odd.
I think it's
a dessert shop, and I think Walter's a pussy.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I think if he would have told his wife to shut the hell up a couple of times,
yeah,
when she really needed to, maybe that preacher wouldn't even know about that lady's money or that she was looking for a new husband.
I'm pretty sure that guy was hitting that blackberry brandy a lot, or peach brandy, whatever he pulled out of there, because it was pretty ready at hand there when he pulled it out and drank it. So pretty sure.
Yeah, and she reacted like that was the first time she scolded.
That's just for when you're sick. I'm sick of you, woman.
If you think about it, I think this would have been during the Prohibition as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. It would have been. So maybe that's also why she was scolding him. But it's kind of weird that they had this sweet shop, because you would think during, the Great Depression, that's not something people are spending a lot of their money on. So I don't know how they're staying in business.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. It's like, we need bread.
I mean, the kids not going to school makes sense, because in the 20s, you still pretty much were required. I don't think it was until probably the 50s where kids finally, were required to go to school, and there was truancy and stuff. But I mean, back in the Depression, there were kids working the mines and stuff. So,
yeah,
it's not uncommon for kids to just stop going to school.
Yeah. So then after the ice cream shop, they go home, and John and Pearl are sharing a bedroom because, again, it's the Depression era. And we get a rather interesting pose from John. He's standing in the bedroom with the light shining in, and he's standing much like Peter Pan or Superman. A little foreshadowing as to what his role is going to be like moving forward in this film. Speaking of foreshadowing, we see Powell show up. He's introduced by silhouette of just his hat and his head. And I thought that was kind of neat, because it's a great way of showing that, he's casting a shadow on this family. Like this shadow is going to attack John's family.
Yeah, but he's such a weird creeper, man. I mean, it's just, he's walking around in the dark, standing under the lamppost, whistling and crap. I mean, this ain't normal. Why is this guy not sticking out like a sore thumb? I don't know.
He's a hunter.
Yeah.
But I think it should have been called Night of the Predator. But yeah, he is like an animal that he's out there stalking.
Yeah. There's a hymn we sing in church called Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. And that's the hymn that Robert Mitchum sings through the entire movie. Now I think it's kind of ruined for me when I go to church, because now all I can think about is this movie and Robert Mitchum singing it.
Sorry, it's spoiled this for you, Matthew. But I got to ask, I'm looking at the house that they're living in, and for Depression era house, they're living large. They got nice furniture. The house is fairly nice. It seems like it's well equipped and stuff. Like when we watched Bonnie and Clyde, things seemed much more sparse in a lot of the homes and things they were at. And I thought, this place is fairly nice. Even their uncle that we're going to be introduced in, his little houseboat, it looked kind of crappy on the outside, but the inside looked really nice, and
yeah.
I don't think people living in the Depression era would have had that much stuff or been living in a place that nice. And if they did, I don't think they're going to go out and start robbing banks. I mean, I know he kind of tries to justify, he's like, I was tired of seeing kids sleep in cars and do this and do that, but that's not holding water for me. Not seeing as how he was living. He seemed like he was doing all right for himself.
Yeah. My guess is that maybe she had champagne tastes, and he's trying to provide for her, and so he had to go out and rob a bank in order to appease his wife.
But even the people at the ice cream parlor,
he did tell the boy, don't give her the money because she's going to squander it.
Right.
And then later, Mitchum has her say awful things about herself. Going out, my husband went and, I don't know that that's true, but he went out and, killed 2 people so I could buy face paint with the money.
Right.
And then he threw it into the river.
Maybe you're right. But he also, I don't know, I think he's a little down on women because he basically tells his son John, he's like, here, you take this because you got, your sister ain't got no sense about her. So he talks about her like she's just, she's done with a box of rocks and she's going to spill to everybody. But dude, you just did it right in front of her. Put it in her dowel. She's going to say
she's little.
She is little. You're right. I mean, but still.
She doesn't know any better. She makes paper dolls out of some of the money. Those were fucking hundreds.
But we watch that kid drag her around later in this film, and she's just dead weight. Like she don't even try to help. I'm like, oh my God, I just leave her. Just go on, John. Leave Pearl. It's like just dragging dead weight.
Because his dad said you guard her with your life.
I know.
You gotta take care of her. You're the oldest.
Seems like if you're running around with 10 grand in a dollar, you could pull $100 bill and pay somebody off to do something for you.
Right.
That is sad that he didn't look for the smallest denomination and go buy some fucking food.
Yeah.
But he couldn't be flashing 100 because later on, like, that would have got him robbed. But $1?
But I thought at one point, I'm sitting there thinking about it, like they start singing those songs, those kids about my dad. I'm going to go find a big kid down the street, some farmhand, and be like, here, man, I'll give you this. Just go beat the shit out of every one of those kids singing this song. It's just, like, he literally could have been like the criminal kingpin of this town if he just worked it right.
Great. Tim's now the godfather of the Ohio River.
Yeah. I'm not even messing around. I got 10 grand. I'm going to be the Depression King, man. You bring a knife. I'll bring a gun.
You did mention earlier about Uncle Bertie, and I have to say that after that scene at night, we get an introduction to Uncle Bertie, and we also get this like rather interesting, establishing shot of the Ohio River. I know it's not really said right off the bat as to where we're at in the United States, but I got the impression that we were like further south, like off the Mississippi River. It wasn't until like much later on that they mentioned that, they're on the Ohio River. What did you guys think of this whole establishing shot as well as, just what were your impressions of Uncle Bertie?
Struck me as just kind of a goofball that he befriended. I don't think he was actually a true uncle, really. I think he was just some kind of crazy little hermit guy that he would go and talk to and stuff that lived on the river because...
Might be afraid of his dad's.
Maybe. I guess he could be because he never goes and visits the house. And later on, there'll be no remorse when he finds the thing in the water.
Right.
Which, if you were blood relative to that, you think you would react much differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely got the impression that he was not a blood relation, that he was like one of his dad's friends. And obviously one of his dad's friends that just kind of like hangs out in like a certain area, like, maybe a bar or
houseboat.
A houseboat or
it's his fishing buddy.
Yeah. Because he even says that he fixed up his dad's skiff. So I was like, okay, yeah. So he's obviously a buddy of Ben Harper's.
I think it saved his life that he's a drunk later.
Yeah.
If he had been sober enough to intervene, I don't think he would have had a chance.
Yeah, he's too old.
Yeah. And, we do get a rather interesting exposition discussion. Bertie actually mentions how he heard about a stranger who knew John's dad, Ben, in the old pokey.
He's asking all around about it.
Yeah. It's almost like Bertie was warning them, hey, beware that there's something shady going on. But I don't think John was picking up on that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was more your dad just got hung, so if you ever run into any trouble, you can come find me.
But unfortunately, I'll be pissed drunk.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's got to get a little, what was the term he used?
Got to get the boiler going. Yeah.
But he had to sweeten his coffee.
Apparently, he's got to keep that boiler burning all night, though.
Yeah.
He did seem depressed that his wife was gone. He did talk to her.
Yeah.
I don't know how recent that was.
I think he said something like 10 years because at one point he's putting he's putting the drink in the coffee. He's like, been 10 years, that woman's still staring at me or whatever. He makes some kind of comment like that.
Yeah.
So he just gets drunk and talks to his dead wife.
Yeah. Well, what else you got to do in depression?
Fish, because that's food.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the people on the river aren't so decimated, because they can always fish for food.
Yeah. That's probably not wrong.
It's other things that you wouldn't have.
Maybe that's how Ben had a nice house, is he's actually a fisherman and he was selling the fish, and then his wife got a little, hey, I'd like to go out on the town sometime, maybe, give some, maybe we should start earning a little more money. Maybe you should be working some more.
I'm sick of all this fish. I want steak. I seen the farms. They got lambs there. I want me some lamb chops.
You know, I know we haven't gotten to that part yet, but Willa is acting a little bit like Bonnie when she first kind of like gets together with Powell. Did anyone else see that similarity? Like she was ready to just, fall into his arms?
I don't think that was the case at all. I think it was Icy Spoon that was really pushing that relationship. She seemed far more reluctant. She's like, look, my husband just literally died. She's little off-put by the advances of the preacher because, he knew.
He sold Icy Spoon first.
Yeah. And she's just like, you need a man in your life.
She was wrapped around his finger.
Because she's pushing. She's like, look, you're a widow and you got 2 children. You need to have a man in your life. That's no place for a woman to be bringing up 2 children on her own. So you better snatch this one up before somebody else does. So, it was really Icy that's pushing this whole relationship.
Yeah.
But Willa, I don't think was real hip on it. I mean, right up and into, including the night of the marriage, there's that hesitation at the door. And so she's not sold on this, I don't think at all. That was my take. Being
that Icy was sold on his bullshit and she's, around later, you could see that she had kind of the most vitriol. Like she kind of led the lynch mob.
Yeah. So I think Powell was the one that was really good at manipulating people. And I think he played Icy like a fiddle. And
yeah, he's a charmer.
My whole thought about the point when she walks through the door on their wedding night, that's where the switch gets flipped and she seems more like Bonnie when Bonnie and Clyde first get together because she's really fixated on him and, she's ready to like hop in bed with him right away.
She wanted to get her bell rung on her wedding night, as is tradition.
Right.
And it's weird that he didn't want to.
Right.
And it could be he's a bisexual serial killer that's impotent. That's my theory. Or it could be that he wants to be in control and he doesn't want that pussy to be in control of him. And maybe that's why he would look kind of like angry and was clenching his hate hand as he tempted himself around those, the woman in the club.
Well, I think he looks at women as dirty temptresses.
His mother could have been a whore, and he kind of hates women.
I think that's part of his MO. That's part of that hard line in the sand I was talking about earlier. He just has these weird things where I think he looks at women as almost kind of being dirty. He really is not interested in sex. He's just interested in money. And maybe he thinks he's doing the Lord's work in some really twisted, warped way, because if he had his way, he'd stabbed everybody in basically that little
burlesque show.
Burlesque show. He'd have stabbed everybody in there if he thought he could have got away with it. So he's got some kind of hang up with women, I think, right off the gate.
He may have sexual gratification from murder, which is the MO of some serial killers.
Yeah.
So maybe when he becomes sexually aroused, he wants to, I'd knife everybody in here. And it's because he is aroused.
Yeah, and I think you might be spot on with that. And going back to her, though, I mean, when she comes out that door, it's their wedding night. I think she married him, Harry, because Icy kind of talked her into it. And it kind of gives her some security in life now. She's got this preacher who's supposed to be of good, standing and is, seems to be well-to-do and somebody to help raise her children. So once they go out and get married, she has to consummate the marriage. That's what's expected. But she kind of goes to grab for that door and hesitates for a minute. And then she's like, takes a breath and walks out there and she's ready to do the deed because that's what's expected of a wife on the wedding night, So I think she resigned herself that this is what I have to do.
Right.
Oh, I don't think that was duty. She wanted booty.
I don't agree with that.
So I think she was very horny.
I think she was hesitant.
He was not. He was tried to go to sleep, said he was praying or something. But he may not want to form an attachment with her because he knows that ultimately he is going to kill her after he gets what he wants because this is temporary.
Well, and there may be that. He might be diabolically planning there. The thing that got me with her, though, was the fact that he's like, you think this is going to happen. Your hips are meant for birth and you want any more children? She's like, no. He goes, well, then, you in the eyes of the Lord, you've done what you needed to do and you need to repent. And she instantly falls into that repentive state.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm filthy. I'm a whore. I'm dirty and I need to be redeemed by this man. Far too quickly. Like she didn't strike me as somebody that felt that self-loathing And then he just makes that statement and she's instant like, he's right. I must repent. I'm a horrible person. I'm just a whore of Babylon. I don't know.
He called her out for being horny.
Yeah.
And slut shamed her, and she bought it.
But way too quickly.
Because she wanted to fuck him.
Well, I think a lot of that too is just because he is smart about how he manipulates people. Right off the bat, as we see him in this ice cream parlor shop, he's already got, Pearl basically eating out of his hand as he's charming her. He's charming Icy, trying to work over Willa, and the only person that's not falling for it is John. Powell's really driving home the fact that he's a pastor. He lies and says that he was working for the penitentiary. We get that whole sermon about the love-hate on his hands, and it's just like, yeah, you can see that he knows certain words to use, certain actions to do to manipulate those people around him. And I think that's what he ends up doing with Willa on their wedding night, is he manages to reinforce his will and his manipulation onto her by using what he knows about being a quote-unquote pastor of the Depression. A lot of people, they were down on their luck, and the only thing they turned to was, going to church, and they were big on certain values. And I think that's the way that Powell was able to manipulate people, was that he keyed into those values and try to get people to do what he wanted because of that manipulation.
I think the problem with this movie is that it's too fast, too soon. It's not well played out.
Been a better miniseries than a movie because you got more time to develop.
Well, I mean, even movies these days do better. I mean, it's an hour and a half movie. If it had been a 2-hour movie and they spent a little more time on his quote unquote grooming, I think it might have gone better. I mean, Icy's going to automatically go into it. She's only going to see him as a reverend. She sees him for everything he is. But Walt doesn't fall for it. He's like, something doesn't seem right about this guy. He calls it out pretty early on. So he's not snowing everybody. And he almost instantaneously marries Willa and takes on these children. Like, I felt like there should have been more time and courting and stuff, and the kind of the grooming into that and setting that scenario up, and more time where he tries to maybe win the children instead of just snow over Willa and then basically tell the kids, like, you're going to tell me and your mom ain't going to believe nothing you say to me. So I'm just going to tell you straight up, you're going to tell me what I want to know, or bad things are going to happen. It was too forced, too fast, and again, that's the pace of 50s movies, and the writing is not always as well drawn out as it is today. The scripts are far more polished, far tighter than they are back then. Back then, it's kind of get the generalization of the plot, the ideas, move forward.
So more time, more, even just having like everyone's favorite 80s montages.
Montages are good, yeah.
Just showing a passage of time of him, like maybe,
courting her.
Yeah, showing up and like doing stuff around the house.
Yeah.
But he's not like that. He wants to get the fucking money and go.
Yeah.
Get the money and run.
Yeah, he's very persistent too. And he's used to being on the road and keep going. Kind of what he is. He's the traveling salesman. He's got to keep going, or he's going to get caught. And this isn't the first crime that he's committed. He's got to keep moving. It's an age without the internet. And as long as he's on the road, he's a free man. I think the most pointed question he had for her that made her feel the worst was want another child. And she admitted, and that made her feel really bad about wanting to have sex just simply to get her rocks off.
Well, and it did help set her up to be more of an evangelist with him.
Correct.
Where we do actually get kind of a mini montage.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the first ever montage or not, but we do kind of get the evangelistic montage of them preaching to the town. Although there's only like 8 people there at any given time. So I don't know how much you could be preaching.
I think that was a tent revival.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the actually going to a church. I think it was just a tent revival.
It literally says tent revival when you look up about the movie.
But where's he getting the tent? Yeah, where's he getting this stuff at,
He borrowed it like anything else.
He's manipulative.
And we've seen a church in that town, so where's the preacher of that town? It's like, why are these people all enamored with him?
Well, they don't, that's their fucking church. They're not going to bring in this ass wipe. He's got to go do it in a tent.
Yeah, but towns were smaller back then. It's not like it is today where there's 50 churches in one town. It was like you really had one church and that's where everybody went. I mean, that town's kind of well developed. I mean, we see later on that girl goes to town and they got the little ice cream shop and there's that newsstand and they got fluorescent lights and a restaurant and stuff. So it's not exactly 100% backwards town. It was kind of weird to see that setting.
I think that's the other town we see later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it is the other town later. But you got to remember, these are river towns. I mean, this is all done on the Ohio River. And so anywhere that you're going to have a river town, you're going to have a lot of development happening, because the river was how they transported goods to and from when the railroad was still in its infancy, as well as, cars and stuff were just coming about. So the river was like a major thoroughfare for a lot of stuff. So that's why we could see a lot of development in just the small towns as well as the really big towns.
Yeah, but we're still talking the 1920s. I mean, power isn't even everywhere. I mean, what does she have outside her house? It's not a street lamp. It's an oil lamp burning.
Right.
Somebody's going along and lighting them things every night in the town and stuff. So some of them places seemed rather well developed for what I consider to be the 1920s and Depression era outside of major city.
Well, listener, if you think Tim is right, go ahead and write in and let us know, the true history of a river town in, like, say, Ohio. Or if he's wrong, feel free to write in and say, hey, Tim's full of complete crap. We don't know. We didn't live in the 1920s.
You don't know how to be depressed. Let me tell you how it works.
We kind of dived a lot into Willa and Powell's relationship. But while that relationship is going on, we get to see another relationship developing. And then, of course, that's with John and Uncle Bertie. And we kind of get the idea that John's going to Uncle Bertie's to kind of get away from Powell and have some place where he can be himself. He doesn't have to be constantly on guard. This development of relationship between Uncle Bertie and John, where it's more like a grandfather to a grandson relationship, in my opinion. And we actually get to see them working on Ben's skiff, and we get to see them, going fishing. We do get some time progression there. We do get an understanding that, things are happening. What did you guys think of this relationship?
If you look at it, I think there was a lot of that going on. I mean, let's face it, it's the Depression. There's a lot of broken families and stuff. I mean, you see a lot of orphan children around. That woman's always like, those kids are showing up, and she's like, oh, where did you come from? Here, I got like a potato, and I'll go away. Like, tired of seeing all these kids because people were starving to different things like that. So I think a lot of times kids did get, say, picked up a kind of either fully adopted because the parents either died or disappeared or whatever, or they were just kind of helping out. They became like the friendly neighbor who became more like a pseudo uncle or grandfather. And I think that's what we're seeing here. He's an older guy, but he's, taking a liking to these kids, and he understands that they're kind of in a bad way. Their father ended up no good. The mother's, working all the time to try to support him. So, he's just like, look, I'm here. I got this houseboat. If you guys need a place, come hang out with me, whatever, we can fish. I knew your dad, blah, blah. He's kind of a known, as you said, quantity, to John. So it's someplace he feels that he can go and kind of hang out safely and doesn't have to worry. So I think it makes sense for the time.
How about you, Joe? What do you think of John and Uncle Bertie?
I think Uncle Bertie was the only positive male role model, if you could call him that, in John's life. And I think they both needed each other. Bertie was lonely, and John lacked positive male role model in his life.
Right.
I mean, you could say Walt Spoon's around, and Walt Spoon was correct about the preacher. He saw the mom, and he's like, well, she's hot, but she's not two kids hot. Something's not right. This guy wants something. And the whole town's asking, where'd the money go? Cause they never found it. And I believe Walt and Icy believe the mom has no fucking clue what happened with the money. And, did you pick up that the preacher tricked John into letting him know he knew where the money was when he first met him?
Yeah.
Because he told him the bullshit lie, and then he saw John smile because he knew he was full of shit.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that here in a little bit, but you've already segued to it beautifully. As Powell is manipulating everybody, trying to learn the truth, and he knows that the children know, I thought it was rather clever that he was able to manipulate John just by seeing his facial reactions to what he tells Willa about the money.
And poor Pearl, she's so innocent, she doesn't even really give a shit about the money.
Exactly.
She's only doing what her older brother's telling her because he has to completely, persistently remind her, keep your mouth shut, or remember what Dad said.
Yeah. She even asks John flat out, says, can we tell him now? He's our new daddy. No, don't say a word.
I'm interested in reading the book now, because I'm wondering if we're going to find out other things, like maybe Willa wasn't the most attractive woman or something like that. And, and maybe he's used to going after old maids and stuff. And so he's denying these women sex because He's just not attracted to them.
Right.
And then he goes and looks at hot skanks and cabaret shows and stuff like that. But I'm not sure. That's also part of why this works, is because there's a mystery as to, like, we don't understand his evilness. It's never spelled out. And he is a bit of a boogeyman.
Right.
Including as soon as he's introduced to the children, we see that shadowy figure.
Yeah. Powell knows that John knows where the money's at. And I think that this kind of leads into like the first real suspenseful scene for me, in the fact that when we see John show up after hanging out with Birdie, we see Pearl, as Joey had said earlier, making paper dolls out of the money, cutting them up. And he like freaks out. He's like, "What are you doing, Pearl?" And they're like trying to gather the money up to put it back in the doll. And you hear Robert Mitchum's character from the house. And all I can think of is, oh man, they got to gather that money up, because, you got to keep that from the main bad guy. And I felt that suspense, much like, the classic Jason walking towards his victims. I felt that same way in that scene. Did you feel the same way, Tim?
I didn't really look at it as a Jason-esque kind of scene. I just looked at it as more as the hard-ass 50s father kind of thing. The tolerance for people that area for children seems far less than it is today. You were going back to the, children should be seen and not heard kind of, era of things. So, he's walking out there and, now he's the man of the house, the father or whatever. So he's just he's kind of being the hard ass. He's like, "What are you doing out there?"
Oh, he doesn't even think they're up to anything at first. And
well, he kind of does. He's like, "What are you doing out there?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just helping Pearl, bringing her in." He's like, "Well, what's taking you so long?" Instead of just being like, "Hey, what are you doing out there?" Okay, well, hey, get inside, you kids. He's following up with another, like, "Well, what the hell is taking you so long?" Because you're not moving fast enough, to satisfy, how I think you should be moving. It just seems like a much more rigid, I reference the 50s because I feel like that's kind of how it was, 50s on back kind of thing. It's, it's interesting that he's almost going to walk out there and just kind of grab him.
Right.
I mean, it's just one of those like, look, you ain't moving fast enough as far as I'm concerned, so I'm going to drag your little asses in, because when I tell you to move, you move. When I say jump, you jump, kind of ruling with the iron fist kind of deal. Plus, he don't like John because he knows John knows. John basically gave it away when he started kind of interrogating. He's like, "I ain't going to tell you. I'll never tell you." And he covers his mouth. So now he's giving it all away. He knows that John knows. He's just a matter of time breaking him.
Yeah.
He's playing, his mother against the kids, where he's kind of moving her along, playing the whole, again, evangelist, preacher's wife, you need to repent for your sins kind of thing, kind of trying to keep her distracted on her sinful ways. And in the meantime, he ain't even playing with the kids. He's just like, "Look, you little shit, I know you know where the money's at, and I don't care how long it takes us. You're going to end up telling me no matter what I got to do."
yeah, he locked him in his room. And if it wasn't that he took her down to the parlor and had that poor timing of the wife coming home and hearing that,
Yeah.
not only has he asked John where the money is, and John's supposedly lying about that, but he's now asking Pearl and threatening Pearl with violence.
And again, it goes back to that thing too of kids of that era, where not only should kids be seen but not heard, but there isn't an adult alive that's going to believe a child versus an adult.
Yeah.
You've seen them. They kind of make accusations about him. And most adults are like, "Why would you lie about this?" They're an adult. Not only is he an adult, but he's a preacher. He's incapable of lying.
It's a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just having that preacher persona adds so much more to him, because not only does it get past just the era where, adults trump children no matter what, because, adults can't possibly lie. But on top of that, a preacher definitely can't lie. So he's almost got like a double shield in front of him against these kids. So short of the mother figuring it out, he can pretty much do what he wants.
Yeah.
Short of him putting marks on these kids where people can physically see them, he's just going to keep playing mind games with them. But eventually, I think if he gets mad enough, one of those kids is just going to disappear, like, "Oh, they ran away, or they had a horrible accident. They fell in the river and they drowned." There's going to be one of those kind of scenarios going on if they get too out of line.
Right.
Oh, I don't think he would have dared done that until he had the money. And he really, at the end of the day, he doesn't need the wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she doesn't fucking know where it is. And that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, I say, and we see that because as soon as she kind of catches him in the act of interrogating Pearl, that's when we can kind of see and we know that, okay, Powell's going to offer. We do get that scene in their bedroom where she's just sitting there being the very pious woman talking to Powell, and you can just slowly see the rage building inside of him. Like turns around and like Joey says, he pops out his switchblade, and with whether it's some kind of arousal thing, he offs her.
It was so casual.
That whole weird scene with him like looking up at the light though was so weird.
Yeah, he switched. Like, so he looked up at the light. He did some things with the moonlight, beautifully lit.
Yeah.
Does look like a stage play, but whatever. As soon as he has made his decision of what he's going to do, he's given himself permission, casually closed the blinds, and then she almost kind of like accepted her fate. It's like, I don't think that she fought him.
No, that was the weirdest part about it. She just, I have such faith in you. I know you'll do the right thing. Really? He lied to you by telling you that the money was in a rock, tied to a rock in the river, and then you heard him interrogating your children. Woman, what the hell's wrong with you? It's just, she was totally, on the Jesus juice at that point. I think.
Either that or she hated herself and she was ready to go.
Maybe,
because she realized she was a fucking fool.
Yeah, but I can't fathom a mother doing that, knowing that her children will be left unguarded in the sky. You know what I mean?
Right. I say it is hard times, so maybe there's other factors that are weighing into on this decision for her.
Well, maybe there's that too.
I don't think she's the best mom.
Yeah, it's like we could have used another 5 minutes or maybe even 10 minutes earlier in the movie just to kind of establish her character going into this, so we get more of an idea of what she's like. Because we're only left to kind of guess what her mentality is throughout the film. Because obviously we have what Ben Harper had said, where she's don't trust your mother, she's going to squander this. And then we kind of see a little bit of what's going on with her relationship with Icy and Walter, but we don't really get a full in-depth fleshed out character of Willa.
Yeah, she's kind of inconsistent. And I think it goes along with just Shelley Winters because Robert Mitchum, not a fan of her, supposedly. He was not happy that she got this role. And allegedly, he made some comment like, I wish they'd actually used her when they tossed her in the lake instead of the dummy. So I don't know if that's true.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
He got his hands on the dummy and he played a prank on her and she didn't like it. Freaked everybody out. They're like, what the hell? Because it was a very good dummy.
Oh, it was an exceptionally good dummy.
That is haunting.
Yeah.
So we've talked about her fate. We don't know what's going on. He's trying to start up the car. There's all this fucking smoke and the kids don't know what that noise is really. It's not until Birdie's gone fishing that and then, oh my God, that hook. I don't know if you guys could see the hook. It's like he's literally tugging on it.
I think he's fishing for jaws in there. I don't know what he thinks he's going to grab with that hook, but there ain't a bluegill or a crappie or anything that's going to get their mouth around that. I mean, not even a catfish.
Yeah, you can see that worm too.
It's a gar. He's trying to catch that gar that he caught earlier.
Maybe.
But they are like some ugly fish. I mean, they're really big. They have a long jaw. They have sharp, pointy teeth.
But why would you even fish for that? They're not good eating. They're horrible fish. Like you cannot really eat a gar.
Oh, this is one of these river monster motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
They're kind of you catch them, you take them out of the population.
It's got the mouth of a dinosaur that swims.
They're kind of a predatory fish that you remove from the environment if you catch one.
Yeah.
But they're not something you try to catch because there's no intrinsic value to it.
Yeah. Well, I think he was trying to catch it to get rid of them.
Maybe. I guess he could be doing that. But that scene though is fantastic though. I just the look of that dummy in the car and stuff, and they were a little risque because they actually show the slit on the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a black line. I didn't notice it until he said that she had that second mouth. And then when I went back, I saw it. The audience gets to see it. And then when you see it from his perspective from the boat, you can kind of barely make it out.
Gotcha.
But a stupid, drunken paranoia that people would think it was him, that was just... I was like, come on, you really fucking dropped the ball, buddy. But they have to keep the story going, too.
That's the clearest damn lake I've ever seen. I literally could see it from the boat. You just look down and there it was. So
that's how we're in a sound studio, is because the water is crystal clear.
Yeah.
Well, it's a river, not a lake.
Yeah, they're on the river. You're right. So it's a river, which I don't know any river that's that clean that's going to look that good. But
yeah,
that looked far more like a lake to me. And then he's fishing but he's not real fishing. I mean, if you look at it, it's just a bamboo pole with a little bit of line on it and then a hook on the end. So he can only go so far down with that darn thing. So she is not very far down underneath. I don't know if you're going to kill somebody. And I mean, I guess he's trying to show that she ran off the road.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if somebody finds her, but they're going to see the slit on her neck and know, plus she's tied on top of it, that she didn't do that on her own. So you think you try to find a much deeper area in which to submerge the car.
Yeah.
Well, he said she drove off in her Model T and left him, so he had to hide her body and the car.
Yeah.
And so he did 2 birds with one stone. And I don't think he meant for anyone to find it and think that. I think he meant either A, I'm going to torture these kids now that she's gone. Within a matter of days, I'm going to have the money. I'm going to be out of here. Or B, they're not going to find her until she's so decomposed that they don't know how the fuck she died.
Well, there's that. If the fish ain't enough of her, they wouldn't be able to tell anymore. Although the drummer wasn't with her. Where's the drummer?
Yeah.
He ran away with the drummer from the revival.
That's true. Yeah.
Like she ran off with a rock star. She ran off with the drummer.
you can't trust them drummers.
Yeah, those musicians, they're no good.
They're worse than bass players. And Joey had talked a little bit about Birdie's reaction to finding the body. And yeah, I have to agree with Joey that it doesn't make sense that people would assume that he did it just because it was in the river near his house. I mean, it seems like he should have reported it right away.
Maybe he's a crazy kook and everybody's like, would instantly think that he did something like that. Maybe he is a drunk. Maybe this wasn't a one-time, alcoholic stupor. Maybe he's drunk all the time and they're like, oh, look, old Birdie got all drunk and, raped that poor widow woman and then, dumped her into the lake.
I think he's always a little drunk, except for when he first wakes up in the morning. And so if he was awake enough to fish, he was awake enough to have had something to drink. And then he's drinking because he found her. And then he doesn't come to these bullshit conclusions that they're going to think it was him until he's really fucking drunk.
Right.
And now he's worthless. So when John needs to have his help, it's Bernie that's helpless.
I still think if you have that kind of paranoia, you must have some kind of rep in the town already.
You got a good point there. Either way, it just further moves the story along to show that, okay, Birdie can't help when the time arises because he's a drunk. He's a true lush.
Maybe the book went into greater detail and told us how his wife maybe died under mysterious circumstances and they blamed his drunkenness on it.
I like that. That actually makes good sense.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah. That would make sense, actually, more than anything. Again, just spend that extra 30 minutes and flesh the story out a little bit more. Give us a little bit of history, Like he could have been talking in picture, like, 10 years, that woman's still haunting me. Not only did people think that I offed her, but, she's always scolding me in my head because I'm drinking because of it or something. Yeah, some kind of comment like that.
They're gonna say I did this one too.
No, that could be.
Maybe he killed his wife by accident when he was in a drunken rage and then passed it off as an accident. And that's why he mourns her every night, because it's his fault. And he didn't realize what he was doing, and his wife's gone and he misses her so.
Maybe he DUI'd her. He DUI'd her and drove the car into the river and she died that way too. And now that's why he lives in a houseboat, because it's the only thing he can operate.
I'll go with that. As another wife in the river, they're gonna think it was me. Oh, I'm gonna drink some more. That'll make it better.
Wow, I think we're really definitely fleshing out a good reboot to Night of the Hunter.
Night of the Drunkard.
Yeah. I'll tell you, just a little bit more exposition on some of these characters could have made all the difference in the movie.
Speaking of the characters, let's go back and see what's happened with John and Pearl. They're hiding out in the basement. And they had the classic little rascals, our gang. They got, soot all over their faces because they're hiding in the coal pile.
Yeah. Little kid logic. We'll just stay down here forever.
Right. Yeah. He can't come down those stairs. Oh, wait. No, he can.
There's monsters down here. He'll never come down this way.
Right. He comes back home and he's calling for the kids. He's calling for the kids and they won't come up. I'm like, dude, just go down there and just find them and pull him out of the basement. No, it's not until Icy shows up that she manages to, lay down the law and have the kids come up.
They felt safe. That's why they really came up.
Okay.
And she really did save them temporarily. She provided a different motivation available to Powell so that he could switch from the stick back to the carrot and say, you kids look really hungry.
Right.
This is a delicious looking meal.
Yeah. I think this is where John actually becomes a little clever because, he says, oh, well, it's down in the basement.
He wanted to lock his ass down there.
Yeah. He had a plan, but, that plan took a while to come to fruition. And
he's like, you want me to go with? Fuck.
Yeah. He's like, oh, great. Now I gotta think on my feet. What do I gotta do? And
what were those jars of liquid down there? Was his dad making moonshine?
I think it was preserves.
Yeah.
Okay. He's like, oh, I know about that, rickety shelf.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Powell gets him to come downstairs. He's like, oh, no, you're going to go first. And it makes him go down. Like, you show me the stone. No tricksies here. Don't be messing with me. And he kind of points over. He's like, boy, this whole floor is cement, which I don't think would have been the case back then, but it probably would have been a dirt floor in the 20s. That seems very...
It was covered with so much fucking coal dust, he couldn't tell what it was until he got down there and examined it in the dark.
Yeah, I don't think it would be concrete. I think it would be definitely either a dirt floor or stone floor, something that wouldn't be concrete. I don't think they would spend the money on the concrete.
It was such a terrible pour, he couldn't tell until he got down there and took a look.
But then he's looking at him, and what is it? He ends up throwing an apple? Isn't that what it was that he hit the little shelf with? Dude, there is a shovel right there. Grab the shovel. Hit him in the noggin when he's looking down at the cement floor. I'm just waiting for this kid to grab the shovel. Never grabs it. It's like, it's right.
He's not a teenager.
I don't care, man.
He's a little boy. He'd have to choke up on that shovel. It takes so long for him to get a good swing.
How old do you think that kid is? I bet he's, 10?
I don't know.
I don't think I could have killed a man with a shovel
Joey,
at 10.
Let me go find a 10-year-old. I'll hand him a shovel and let him hit you in the head. And if you tell me it doesn't hurt, I'll pay you $100.
I'm going to see that coming, and I'm going to be like, at least get my fucking forearm up. Now I have a broken forearm.
I'm saying, even a 10-year-old, he gets enough swing on a shovel and hits you in the head. He might not kill you, but he's going to send you down to the ground for a few minutes. You're going to see stars no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you got broken glass and God knows what in those jars in your face, that's going to be a good enough deterrent that they got to slam the door on him. And I love it when he gets his fingers caught in that door. He's like, ow!
Yeah.
This has got a normal human reaction that's just like, shit, that fucking hurt. And then, boom, you're locked in.
But that's another part with that dumb little Pearl. He's like trying to get her to go up the stairs, and all of a sudden she's never known how to use her legs to go up a staircase ever in her life, and stuff.
She went boneless, Tim. She went boneless.
Yeah. Again, ragdoll. This girl just goes like completely ragdoll, dead weight. I'd be like, what? Just smacking her in the head. What the hell's wrong with you? Get up the damn stairs.
Fucking 4.
It don't matter, man.
I was worthless when I was 4.
You're worthless as you're 46.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen you go upstairs now. It's pretty similar.
Come on, if we're trying to run from a bad guy and you go boneless on me, I'm leaving you behind, man. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm pulling an Uncle Bertie, and I'm just gonna be like, oh, I'm just so drunk, and I'm just gonna lay there. It's gonna be overlooked. Strategy.
I'm too drunk for anybody to mess with. He's gonna be like the cashier that just tries to pretend like they passed out during his stick up.
You can come back and kill me later. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to take a little nap right here on the floor.
That's a cleanup body there. We'll come back, take care of that one later.
I'm not an alcohol poisoning. I'm not a threat.
But yeah, I don't know. Just so it takes him forever to get up that stairs, and it's like watching all three of them is just painful going up that staircase because
I think he was so pissed off that he just stumbled.
I think part of it too is he's still just completely gobsmacked at the fact that he finally learns where they hid the money, and it was actually in the doll. Because I mean, that's part of the reason why this whole situation happened where they were able to get away was because he was threatening to cut John's throat with his switchblade, and then he starts laughing about how Pearl tells him that the money's in his doll.
Yeah, of course it is. He got a 1-2 punch.
Yeah,
it's been in front of me all of this time, and I just got preserves in the fucking head. So I'll give him credit where credit's due. It's like he got discombobulated.
Yeah. The kids do escape, and they manage to head over to Birdie's. And again, this is where we see the fruits of Birdie's drinking because of everything that happened. He's, completely passed out. He can't help poor John. And so then John gets the idea of, well, let's get in the boat or in the skiff and get out of here. Now, what I want to know, how does Powell know to leave the house and then get to the river? There's no explanation. At no point do we know that he knows about the skiff or that we know where John likes to hang out. You know, how does he know how to track the kids down there? There's like no real kind of connectivity.
How does a grown-ass man fight with a bush for almost 5 minutes straight?
Right.
It's like, it reminded me of that whole thing from Monty Python and the Holy Grail where that guy is running and it just seems like it's taking forever and forever and forever and forever. And then all of a sudden he's right there. You know, it's just, it was ridiculous. Every time you turn back, I swear to God, they looped that same film like 4 times. He's just fighting with that bush and you go back, he's still fighting the same spot with that bush over and over and over. And then he's in the mud.
Yeah.
It was the goofiest thing I've ever seen.
And it was a little suspenseful for me because you kept seeing the boat, wanting the kids to get on the boat. And the stupid Pearl does not know how to walk because this is the point
she's
where...
She's boneless again. Yeah, she's a rag down.
Yeah, and he's like trying, you know, this 8-year-old boy is trying to get this 4 or 3-year-old little girl into the boat up over its rail. And it's, I mean, I was getting palpitations watching this. So I'm like, okay, I can see the suspense of this.
There's your Depression era stuff. So Pearl's malnutrition, you know, she's got rickets. Pearl's not getting around very well. Mama just fed me ice cream instead of milk. We just go over to Spoons and eat ice cream and my joints hurt. I can't run. Help, John.
Well, apparently her mom spent too much money on keeping her curls looking perfect because that girl had like the best curls I'd ever seen on anybody. She's perfect orphan Annie curls all the time. So any girl that can afford to have curls that look that good all the time should have a full belly too.
She's actually a year older than John. She's just very horribly.
She's so malnutrition that her joints never actually develop correctly. So that's why she can't move well.
She didn't stop growing and she's stupid. It's my younger brother, John. He drags me everywhere. My legs don't work. My legs are like a Barbie. I got no real articulation in them. Yeah, she pretends to be a child. John, would you drag me to school? I'm so lazy.
But, you know, Tim did also mention, you know, how does a boat move on still water? And there is actually a part where you do see the river is running pretty quick when they get in the boat, and John uses the oar to like smack Powell and then like push off the river in order to get away after Powell falls into like the quicksand area bank of the quote unquote river.
Yeah.
I've gotten stuck in a mud bank or two, so it is.
Yeah, but never to my knees.
Did anybody else think that Powell was going to Jason Voorhees out of the water and grab him?
No.
Because I was waiting for that shit to happen. It didn't.
Yes. Yeah, that was actually in my notes here. You know, Jason Voorhees has nothing on Pastor Harry Powell. Because, I mean, I felt some early Jason vibes happening here.
Yeah, instead that he didn't like the water. He's like, fuck this. I'm going to go kill somebody and get a horse.
Well, that leads us to the next scene, though, where this guy is relentlessly going down the river all the time and is able to track these kids.
Yeah.
Like, if you're on an average river, especially the Ohio River, that should be moving. Like, those kids should be really cruising, you know, on that river.
Yeah.
They should have drowned that night. That boat would have been overturned.
Well, not necessarily drowned, but if they keep it upright, they should still be able to move at such a pace that he should never be able to keep up with them.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of like blows my mind about Pearl is, so you're on the lam. You know that you're trying to get away from this guy. Why are you singing? You're just broadcasting where you're at on the river. So obviously,
were they singing?
Yeah, little Pearl just starts singing a song.
Oh yeah,
and we get this like little song montage just as they're going down the river, you know. And I'm just like, come on, shut up, girl.
Yeah, she's more trouble than she's worth. I'm sorry, but there'd have been a come to Jesus moment with her and I if she'd have been my sister. I'm like, this is how the real world's working, and this is what you're going to do. And if you don't, I'm dumping your ass off at the bank, and I'm continuing on with myself and the money, and you're on your own. There's just a certain point where it's like, you are just dead weight. You're killing me. You're going to get us killed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She just infuriating. Absolutely infuriating.
They're going down the river. We get some montage stuff happening, but then we also cut back to the ice cream shop and we get an exposition scene. And much like Tim had said, the whole play theater feel to this movie, this is definitely a bottle scene where we get a whole exposition as to what's going on with Powell, as he had wrote maybe a postcard or a letter or something to Walt and Icy saying, oh, you know, I'm taking the kids. I'm going down to my my sister's place where they'll have a solid meal, and we're out down there visiting him, and he's basically establishing an alibi to again manipulate people around him so that he knows that he can safely go after these kids and maybe off them and get the money from them. I did think that it was kind of neat that there was like an offhand comment that Walt had said to Icy, or Icy had said to Walt, was, well, you thought that they were stolen by the gypsies. Yeah, well, I still think the gypsy came along and murdered that farmer and stole his horse. We immediately then see Powell on a horse, and I just thought that was kind of a neat little exposition scene with a segue to show us how Powell was getting down the river.
What kind of horse is it? Pale horse.
Oh, didn't even realize that.
Yes, but here we go. Here's the $1 million question, Joey. Do you know how they filmed that to make it look proportionally correct on those shots?
Oh, with the famous shot with the silhouette of the horse?
Yeah.
I don't know. Please tell me.
It's a dwarf on a pony. Because the soundstage is so short and so small, they had to make it look big. So they put a dwarf on a pony because there's only so much room between, where they're shooting to that.
Oh, I'm going back and watching that. I'm guessing it's a jockey on a pony, because if it's a dwarf, I'm going to see his stubby little arm.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that he stole the horse, because now he's got it seems like a car might be the better way to go, because some reports their horse stolen, and you riding along on a horse all the time, you might stick out a little bit. I mean, I know it's the 20s still, but
there's no road next to the river.
Well, there was, though, because he was driving on it when he came into town. And if you look, that was him on that little dirt road next to the river.
Well, I don't know if it goes the whole length of the fucking river.
Well, I don't either, but
maybe that was just the closest means of transportation was the farm. And he's like, there's a horse. And then there's like, what are you doing with my fucking horse? And he stabs the guy, and then he takes off the horse.
But if that's the case, let's say that's what it is. If I'm those kids, I'm like, all we got to do is get downriver and then go to the other side. Because I can't imagine there's a shit ton of bridges yet. So if he's on a horse, he ain't get across the other side very easily. All we got to do is get to the other side and get away.
Yeah.
They're stupid kids.
Well, this is true. Well, at least Pearl's stupid.
Right.
Yeah, John's pretty resourceful, being that he's 10.
He is.
Yeah, he's kind of sharp, but and just again, he's casually riding this horse. It's not like we're watching him gallop this thing down like he's in the old West, and they're, it's not like the Searchers or something like that at Western, where they're like looking for these kids and they're, moving fast across the high plains to find them. So this boat, if it's on the Ohio River, even though it seems to be on the most placid river I've ever seen,
right,
where it shouldn't be moving at all. They should be so outpacing this casual, ride that he's having on his horse that he should never be able to find him. But this is where I'll agree. He turns into Jason Voorhees. He's like, he just keeps showing up. I mean, the kid even at one point, it's like, does this guy never fucking sleep? He's relentless. It's like, it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. So, it is impressive, his determination to keep following them. But I don't think casual riding a horse versus a boat on a very fast moving Ohio River. I just don't see that happen. I don't see him catching up with them.
Yeah.
Even though they did pull over at one point to sleep. I mean, they should have been so far ahead. It shouldn't have ever been a threat.
Yeah.
I think they begged for more than one person for a potato.
Yeah.
I think they were literally on that river on and off for like a month. And then they showed him preaching and stuff, like he had to get some side money so he could get some food. They do a little revival bullshit.
So yeah, I definitely think that there was some time progression there. It doesn't make sense that as slow as he was going, he shouldn't have been able to catch up to them in that barn when they go to stop to sleep.
Because every time they get in that boat, they should be moving exponentially faster than him, no matter what. You know what I mean? He should be losing ground all the time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you can only run a horse so hard. You know what I mean?
You can piss off the side of a boat, but have you tried to shit off the side? I think the kids are stopping every once in a while.
Yeah, but that's a 5-minute job. That's not a guy who's casually marching a horse nonstop. And that horse has got to rest. You've got to feed it. You got to water it, things like that. It's a living creature. It's not a boat. All they got to do is like hop off, whip his pants down, drop the deuce, hopefully not wipe with any poison ivy, back in the boat. Like 10 minutes tops, he's back in the boat. Even if they go and beg for food, they're popping out. They run up to a door. Somebody's tossing a potato, tell them to get the hell off their lawn, and they're back in the boat, and off they go again.
Tim, those kids didn't wipe.
You're correct. Yeah, they were probably smelling pretty gamey at one point.
They were just human skid marks by the time that they get found.
Although if Pearl craps anything like she does, walking, moving up staircases, or getting into boats, it might actually be, putting them behind at a pretty decent pace. I will admit that.
That's 50 minutes just for a rabbit turd.
John, I can't get off the boat. I can't get my underpants down. It's just, I know we can wipe our ass with the towel filling. I use the paper and the towels at every stop. We're almost out of toilet paper. They get to the end. He's like, I don't want the money anymore. There's like a $5 left in there. He's like, what the hell?
They were all hundreds. That way you could actually fit $10,000 in the doll.
It'd have to be.
Because it's only going to be, 10
it won't be very
10.
big.
It's only going to be $100 bill.
10 grand and $100 bills is not very big.
Yeah. Like I said before, he was holding it in the palm of his hand. So clearly it was large denominational bills.
Pearl, you can't wipe your ass with $100 bills. We can just put it back into the doll. He's like, oh yeah. Why does this doll fucking stink like shit?
So yeah, we did mention that they head down the river. They do stop at that barn to spend the night. We get Powell singing, leaning on the everlasting arms, and I'm like, oh man, totally ruined this song for me in church.
I figured something out. Leaning, and then now let's do it with whistling. I think that cadence and that eeriness that may have been borrowed for The Walking Dead with Negan's crew, because they whistle to each other.
Interesting.
And then he whistles as he's walking with the bat, play eeny meeny miny mo.
So it's kind of like all assassins have the copy of The Catcher of the Rye with them. Any psycho people who kill people are drawn to this verse or whatever.
No, I'm saying that a lot of other things have been influenced by this fucking movie.
I'll give you that. Yeah,
I like my interpretation.
That's fine.
Because Tim is the always right guy.
I didn't say that. It's just a fact.
John and Pearl, they hightail it out of that barn and they get back in the boat and they go further down the river. Again, they wind up just kind of bumping up to the side of the river. Apparently, this is where the river ends, from what I can tell by the way the boat lands on the shore. They are then threatened by a new character named Mrs. Cooper or Miss Cooper. She sounds just like my grandmother. Don't make me get a switch. And what does she do? She grabs a switch and starts beating the kids to send them up to her house. And I just thought it was kind of funny that, here's your fire and brimstone kind of, grandmotherly woman who's now going to adopt these children. And what's the first thing she does is she gives them a bath.
Because they smell like crap, man.
Yeah.
Pearl hasn't had a proper wipe in a month.
And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, again, they're borrowing something else from another source. This is Chronicles of Narnia.
This is Chronicles of every family on the planet, dude.
No, because Miss Cooper adopts them much like the children from the Chronicles of Narnia. During World War II, they got sent to the countryside to be adopted by their second uncle or something. So I'm like, yeah. So this is totally a take on Narnia. I'm just waiting for them to walk into a closet to another land.
It would have come out around the same time because this is based on a book and Narnia didn't start to get published until 1950.
Right.
I think they're just touching upon a trend of during the Depression, people lost their parents. During wars, people lost their parents.
Right.
People took them in. And in this case, they find a eccentric woman, or an eccentric woman finds them, kind of scolds them into her house.
Yeah.
And it's the best thing that actually ever happens to them. And they immediately see that it's oh, here's some obedient kids that she's already taken in.
Yeah.
And we find out, well, they need one of them in particular needs some fucking religion. We find out later.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that this was the same woman at the beginning of the movie until I went back to watch it again. I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, that's Mrs. Cooper. That's the woman at the beginning of the movie talking about false prophets. And it's really great, fantastic that you get this whole circle about her and that opening sequence where, we now see okay, this is where everything's culminating to. We're actually understanding that, okay, this whole thing was based off of a story that she's telling. Or am I wrong in that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think it is her kind of recounting. She's kind of recounting about this person, what she knows of it, and then the rest of it we kind of get from the kids. Now, whether they told her or whether it's just, I guess that would be the kids kind of retelling the story later in life to fill in the blanks or whatever. But he's kind of telling the story overall.
Right.
You know, look, there was this guy. You know, you can't always trust people at face value. They're not always what they seem, blah, blah, blah. You know, luckily though, the children are resilient and they're able to, you know, fend for themselves and in hard times and overcome things that would normally probably break the average adult. So
it is from there that we do see her. She takes them in, and the next time we see them all together, they're heading into town to sell apples, and we kind of get the establishment of the character of Ruby and her fraternizing with the local boys, and it's kind of the weakest link in the herd because Powell eventually finds her and uses her to get access to the children. And I just thought it was another form of great manipulation on his part in order to get what he wants.
Yeah, she's seduced by Powell, and Powell really just takes her out for ice cream and doesn't really do any seducing.
She's seduced by anybody that'll give her the time of day and give her the affirmations that she needs as far as, oh, am I the prettiest thing you've ever seen? Blah, blah, blah. Am I desirable? You know, because this girl has got a lot of issues. I mean, she has a lot of self-doubt and she is just looking to plug that with anything she can to make her feel better about herself and her place in the world.
I think she might be a victim of sexual abuse, and then so she was introduced to certain things, seeking it because she's in this house full of women and she's safe, but she still has these awful thoughts that she wants to act out, and so she finds young boys to act them out with, you know, during her sewing lessons, and now she's run into a man that's showing interest, and maybe it wasn't the first full fucking grown man that had show interest in her.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong on that. I think you might have hit it right there. You know,
yeah,
we don't know.
Yeah, and at least she confesses to Mrs. Cooper about it all, and you know, tells her about Powell and what happened in town. And I thought that was another humanizing moment too for Mrs. Cooper, because she's now showing love to Ruby and explaining, okay, yeah, I understand you messed up. You know, you're just looking for love. This stuff happens.
She knows Ruby's damaged goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And this is the one place where they actually do a good job of building up that character development, showing us, you know, this girl's issues, showing us that, you know, she understands, you know, Mrs. Cooper understands that this girl has issues. And they spend enough time with her questioning, like, oh, well, what did this man want? What did he ask? Oh, he just asked about, you know, did we have a couple of new people? So he asked about the new kids and stuff.
She asked about Pearl and John specifically.
Yeah.
Right. Which to her is already like, okay, was their paw? She's like, oh yeah, I think so or whatever, but I'm not sure. So she already knows, like, she's been around the block. Yeah. This woman, you know, she's educated in the ways of the world and she knows this isn't adding up.
And then when Powell shows up, it's awesome that, you know, Mrs. Cooper basically sees him for what he is, the false prophet, the wolf in sheep's clothing. And, you know, when he starts to talk about his tattoos on his hands, she immediately is like, yeah, that's not what a preacher should be preaching or a preacher should be doing. And she's like right there to just stop his manipulation.
She cuts him off. She didn't even want to fucking hear his bullshit about his fucking tattoos. He didn't get to finish it.
She had enough time to get John to open up a little bit to her, just enough to get enough story out of her that when Powell finally shows up, knows what he's saying is not jiving with.
Yeah, she gave him an opportunity. She said, John, is this your paw? He says, no. And then as soon as she steps away, he chases John onto the porch, you know, after the doll.
Well, that's after she declares, well, he's like, he's not my paw. And she's like, and he ain't no preacher.
Yeah. She
calls it right to his face. And the guy's like, well, jig's up. So got enough left to lose. But he's like, what's this woman going to do? Yeah, I mean, this woman ain't going to stop me.
She had him dead bang too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he even tells her, he's like, I'm going to come back tonight.
How ballsy.
What the fuck are you doing, dude?
Well, because that's where we get the Night of the Hunter. This is the Night of the Hunter.
See, though, if I'm Mrs. Cooper and I got this guy, as Joey said, dead bang. I mean, she pulls out. He didn't expect her to have that shotgun. And, she's basically like, you get the hell out of here. He's like, oh, I'll be back tonight. That'd have been like, well, no, you won't. I ended it right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just, because she shoots him dead on the property. Who's going to contest it?
Right.
And I mean, here's this nice widow lady that takes in orphans. This guy shows up on her doorstep and threatens the kids, and she shoots them dead. Dead men tell no tales. She probably could have just sold it right there that, like, this guy came to try to accost one of these kids, and I took him out of his misery. And then they're going to look him up and finally figure out, like, oh, yeah, this guy was no good. I think the story could have ended right there, and it could have been done.
Yeah.
At the very least, he had a record for stealing cars.
Yeah.
But then again, if she blows his face off, he's hard to identify.
Right.
So
Yeah, just hit center mass. Did you guys notice that as soon as she turns the gun on him and he runs away, what does he call all the women?
Harlots, doesn't he?
Jezebels. So I think that's keying into Joey's whole theory about his mental ability and his
Aversion to women.
Yeah, that's it. Powell does come back, and I think this is where, we truly see the quote Night of the Hunter, where we get some really cool shots of the house, of Powell sitting outside, singing, and Mrs. Cooper's like in shadow because she's keeping an eye on him. And I just thought the way this was all lit, really cool. I have to give it to the cinematographer on this whole sequence. I especially liked when Ruby comes down and she's got that candle and she hits the light just right to where she lights up everything. And now you can't see Powell outside and he slips away. I thought, wow, that's a really cool use of light. Joey, as our resident film aficionado, what did you think of that?
Oh, I loved it. And a lot of people cite the back and forth singing where they kind of do this awkward duet where he's singing leaning and then she uses the more traditional leaning on Jesus as one of their favorite parts of the movie. And then we get a creepy, now we're back to this boogeyman scenario where, like, and if you'll notice, like 4K reveals it, when the girl comes out and there's light and now you can't see through the screen door as well. He's actually gone immediately. He doesn't walk off the light of the room. There's a cut. They hit it really well, and then he's not there. And then when they turn the lights back off, that's when the audience sees he's not there. But you could see through the screen door, he's already gone.
Gotcha.
It's definitely a boogeyman moment. Ultimately, he did bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, we do get that drawn out. He's circling around the house trying to find his way in, and he does get his way in. And as you said, he brought a knife to the gunfight, and Cooper manages to shoot Powell. And we don't get the classic Wilhelm scream. We get this weird scream. I don't know how to characterize it. Maybe like, I don't know, a cat in heat outside somebody's barn door. I don't know what you would classify that scream as, that Powell says as he runs out the door and heads towards the barn.
I believe you call that crying like a little bit.
I thought she shot him in the arm because his arm looks kind of like limp later. But then I read online that she shot him in the face with a face full of birdshot. So I don't know.
Yeah. Now, why he went and sat in the barn the whole time, I have no idea. And even at that, why he sat on that tree stump outside her fence, or like right inside of her fence. That's another one that makes no sense to me. Again, now he's come back. He's told you he's coming back. You are sitting on the porch. That front fence isn't probably more than 10, maybe 15 feet.
Yeah.
You could have shot him.
And then they're sitting and singing a duet together. No, the only duet we'd be singing is, firing of the 12 gauge. That would be it. That would be my half of the duet. Why are you giving this guy any chance to totally start messing with you and try to find his way in? If he's come back, just shoot him and get it over with. Don't toy with him.
I think she always planned to shoot him because she didn't call the cops until after she shot him.
I don't stop this cat and mouse game. It makes no sense.
If you shoot him in the lawn, people could say, well, I don't know about this. If you shoot him in the house at night, then it's very no one's going to argue that there's no reason he should have been there.
It's self-defense.
You are putting modern day, ethics onto this. So this is the Depression. You shoot this guy that's over here taunting, basically threatening you and these poor, unfortunate orphans. These cops aren't going to make any question because when she calls and says, I got something in the barn for you, Those cops come, they pretty much just give him the beat down, handcuff him, throw him in the car. No questions asked. There's no follow-up report. They just haul this guy away. So
that, and they charge him with, they even say they charge him with the death of Willa Harper.
Yeah. So again, it's the 20s. If she'd shot that guy, she'd just been like, look, he was here. He threatened the kids, blah, blah, blah. I shot him dead. She's out in the country. There isn't going to be any trial. There's nobody going to be convicted. The cops are just going to be like, he probably got what he deserved. And especially once they find out he's got a record, it's all said and done. There ain't none of this today where there's got to be big investigation and should she be arrested because she falsely shot him and he wasn't over the threshold. None of that crap happened in the 20s. It was just, he was in the wrong. He got what he deserved. I'm going to stand by that.
Okay.
Now, let's go back to he did torment them all night with this stuff. He's very smart. They get together, they bunch up in the kitchen where she could see, every which way he could come from. And that is horrible. That had to be a stressful night.
Yeah.
I want to point that out now, and we're going to come back to that.
I don't understand why she just didn't call the cops at the beginning, when he first showed up.
Yeah, that would make far more sense too. Absolutely.
She wanted to shoot him, and she wanted it to look justified.
Right.
And so she let him, play his game and get close enough that he's in the house and she shot his ass. I think she didn't do that just to justify the shooting. She probably justified it to herself because she wasn't shooting to wound him. She just happened to wound him. She shot to kill him.
Now, see, I'm going to take a page out of your book, Joey. If she'd have done the logical thing, then there wouldn't be a movie. That's what I'm going to,
That it's got to be more interesting because you want to have that other scene later where John has a flashback. Now, it's been described online as he's having a flashback of his father being arrested.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah,
but I took it as, and maybe I didn't hear him right, and I need to watch this again. He says, "Take it back," and it's because they said we're arresting you for the murder of Willa. And I don't think John knew for certain that his mother was dead until they said that. And so he's like, "Take it back," and he's beating him with the doll, but he's also trying to give it to him because it's like, take this, take the money, and give me back my mom.
Yeah, see, I took it as he was having a flashback to when his dad was arrested, and he wants to get rid of the money because he's like, this is the thing that caused all this trouble and heartache, and he wants him to take it back because he doesn't want the heartache.
Yeah, I would go along with what Matt said because these cops are pretty hardcore. They just come in, they throw this guy on the ground. Both instances, handcuff him, haul away. There's no coddling the children like there would be these days, like, oh, get the child away, blah, blah, blah. We don't want him, all that kind of stuff. They're just like, no, this is what happens when you do bad shit. Let this be a lesson to you. They just throw him in the car and off they go. There's no explanation. There's no talking, nothing. And I think he snapped. I think he's seen that again. He's like, I don't want to have to keep seeing this. And it's like, take the money because I just want you, in his mind, he was seeing his dad. He's like, I don't want you to hurt my dad. So I think you're right.
He doesn't get over it either.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be pretty traumatic.
Because they talk about courtroom trauma, and he's not able to identify him. Like he can't look at him.
Yeah.
Because at that point, like he's staring at the murder of his mother, not the guy who's just pursuing him.
Right. Now, the part that threw me off about this less than that was the mob. The mob just seemed kind of weird because you're like, is the mob mad at them or are they mad at the preacher? Because you couldn't quite tell if they were like, oh my God, they put this preacher in jail and he shouldn't be there. Like it didn't seem very definitive.
Oh no, she was screaming that they were tearing the place apart and, getting things to go like, hit him with chairs or some shit. And she's saying he's Satan, hiding in a preacher's clothes or something to that nature.
Yeah.
Okay. I must have missed that, but I did love that they literally seemed like they had every possible thing in their hands to beat this guy with. It's like, well, I swear one guy was running around the headboard of a bed. It's just chairs, headboards of beds, all kinds of stuff.
They were tearing apart the courtroom.
I couldn't identify everything that they had, but they also called him Bluebeard. Now I had to look that up. Bluebeard is a name they came up with for men who kill their wives. And it's origins come from a tale about a wealthy man in the habit of murdering his wives. He had 25 wives and he killed them all, right? Or Walt said that.
Okay.
And then they start calling him Bluebeard. And I don't know if that is, they're just assuming this, but we definitely, as the audience, he's killed some other woman at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And they talked about, conning women out of the last bit of money they had in the sugar bowl. they saw him as a serial killer, whether or not those were the charges.
Again, I don't know why they would have created the lynch mob, because, we don't get an idea of what the verdict was.
I don't think there had been a verdict yet, well, I guess there kind of was.
No, they imply that the hangman's going to hang him, or excuse me, that the one a gentleman who was at the father's, like, he felt bad that the father got hung, and now he's made two kids fatherless.
Yeah,
showed that scene at the beginning, and then he says, "I'm going to stick around for this one." He's going to watch him hang.
I think the mob just wanted to rip him apart instead of waiting for the hangman to do it.
Well, there was uncertainty, and they wanted justice now.
Gotcha. Like, why did the lynch mob form? Because if they didn't form, then they wouldn't have had to sneak the guy out the back door. And then that's where we saw the hangman saying, "Well, hey, I'll be seeing you short."
It just seemed clumsy. It was clumsy execution on that bit.
Well, I see warmed him up.
Right.
Warmed up the crowd. Because she personally felt betrayal because she was made a fool of. So part of that's her being a busybody, and she did not like getting fooled.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree with Tim. It was clumsy, but it was an ending. And, we do get a rather nice ending to it all, in the fact that it's Christmas time when the end of the movie is taking place, and we actually get an exchange of gifts and stuff. So we go from like a movie about a serial killer to all of a sudden the end of it is almost like a Hallmark ending to a movie. And I just thought that was kind of sweet and wholesome, but I'm like, it feels a little clunky and kind of tacked on.
I don't think anything in this movie felt like a fucking Hallmark movie, dude. And my wife just signed up for fucking Hallmark Plus.
I think it was just a nice reassurance that these kids are going to be all right. She's like, look, kids endure. This volatile moment in their life is over. And even though their parents are both dead, they're going to grow up someplace safe and loved. The messaging at the end, and it was like, children are resilient and they will come through this, especially if they have the help of a loving adult that can help take care of them and guide them through it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a lot more positive ending than my oldest adopted daughter's a whore, and then John and Pearl are going to be fucked up for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
and we lost all that money, which she could have used to take care of the kids.
And they abide and they endure. The last thing we hear from the Coen brothers film, The Big Lebowski, the dude abides. Because again, the Coen brothers and Guillermo del Toro and Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee, they were all influenced by this movie. I just thought it was kind of neat that, you see some of those things from other movies in here.
It's such a weird movie for so many people to be so attached to, in my opinion, again, because I think the book is probably fantastic, I'm guessing. Yeah, I think even Stephen King says this is by far the scariest thing he's ever seen, in his mind. And that says a lot coming from that guy. But I almost wonder, was he enamored with the movie or was he enamored with the book? Because he is an avid reader. So I'm wondering if he didn't read the book and the book is really what inspired that statement.
Send him a message on Blue Sky. He writes back.
Well, maybe. But I'm guessing that the book is probably fantastic. And this book or this movie again goes back to, I feel like the director trying to direct it like it's a stage play really hindered and did damage to what is really a very solidly dark and macabre story. And I can say that because, Charles Lanton never goes back. And this failed so miserably, he will never direct again. He just goes back to theater. He's done,
He took it
he
personally.
took it real personally, and he just goes back. He's like, I'd rather do theater because it makes more sense, and I'm allowed. Because what he said is, it's the thing about film is that once you film it, it's done. You can't change anything. If a play doesn't work, you can rewrite dialogue. You can change the way it's filmed. You can change the stage. You can manipulate and change it as the production goes along. A film is one and done. If you don't get it right, you're going to fail. And he felt like he failed doing this. So he was never going to go back to directing a film again, even though he was lined up to do more. He's like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. So, and again, as a stage play, I think if I were to watch this as a stage play, very well done. You know what I mean? It's as good as you could hope for. But I expect more out of my movie because I feel like they have time to flesh certain things out and make them make more sense. And that just didn't happen in this.
since you've said all that, I think this is a great spot to segue into our death clock then. So, Tim, I kind of got an idea, but is it worth taking an hour and 32 minutes off your death clock to watch
Man,
Night of the
it's
Hunter?
such a hard call to make because, again, I'm enamored with the story. I like the concept of it. I think it's a great concept. I think it has a lot of merit, but this is another one where I'm going to say, I think you might be better to go read the book instead of watch this movie. But there are, I'm going to guess, 100,000 people out there. I mean, there are so many people that reference this movie, cite it as an influence to other things that I'm probably squarely wrong on this, but it just didn't hit for me. It just didn't. And I'm going to say you probably can skip this, but if you really want to see it for the cinematic value and to hear or to see what everybody else is referencing, then it's probably worth your time. But otherwise, maybe go read the book.
Gotcha. Well, how about you, Joey? What do you think?
It's a fucking masterpiece. And there are institutions, I can't remember the name of the one in particular, that, they might be a little hoity-toity, high and mighty, and they consider, Citizen Kane is one of the best movies ever, which I don't think is aged very well. I think this movie's aged very, very well. And one of those institutions also in the same sentence said, and Night of the Hunter. So I think it's that good. This may have been the first time I've watched the movie, but it will be far from the last.
This is a rare condition where I'm actually going to agree with Joey over Tim. I do think that this is worth taking time off your death clock. Mainly because, like Joey said, it did age gracefully, but I think it ages gracefully because it is a period piece. It is set around the Great Depression. You get a feeling of the historical value of what was happening at that time. You can see what America went through during the 20s and 30s. And it's also one of those great movies that you kind of see the proto slasher flick that we get in the 80s or the 70s and 80s with like Jason and Michael Myers. You get that feeling that there's some suspense and there's some tension building in this movie. And I gotta say it was fun to watch. And not to mention that Robert Mitchum plays a darn tootin' good bad guy. I have yet to watch him in Cape Fear, but I think he did a great job here. I'm actually looking forward to eventually watching Cape Fear someday, where he kind of reprises this type of a role. So this film is definitely a watch for me for the death clock.
One probably led to the other. They saw him in this and they're like, that's our guy for Cape Fear.
Gotcha.
See, my association with Robert Mitchum is not with this film. Like when I think of him, I think of war movies. I mean, World War II. He was in, Midway. He was in Anzio. That's where I reference him, and even westerns, El Dorado, being one of them. So seeing him in this just also probably took me out too, because I'm used to him playing such a serious role as a cowboy or somebody in a military position.
Gotcha.
But he did a great job. I mean, again, played a great sinister character. It's just a little off for me. That's all. But I don't think it was his acting. I don't think it had anything to do with him. I think it was just the way the movie was directed. If I'm gonna lay it in anybody's lap, it's Charles Langton. That's it.
Well, it is interesting that we should pick this movie at this time of the year because, like I said earlier, it ends during the Christmas season, which I find rather serendipitous that we have reviewed this film during the Christmas season, which I think is a nice segue to mention that our next episode is our holiday episode. And Tim, you want to let our audience know what we're planning for our Christmas episode?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Matt. So we have scoured the 1001 Movies You Should Watch Before You Die book. And although it has a ton of Halloween movies, as you may have, picked up on with our holiday specials over the last 2 years, it does not have a lot of Christmas movies. Amazingly so. So we have decided to close the book, and we are going to do movies that we think should be in 1001 Movies Before You Die, at least as far as it pertains to Christmas movies. So we all sat, we talked about it for a while, and next week we are going to do National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation because we all feel that movie definitely belongs in the book.
All right. Well, with that being said, folks, if there are any Christmas movies that you want to tell us about, you can always let us know in feedback. You could email our show at mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com. We'll read your email right here on the show. You could also leave us a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and we'll discuss it here too. So, yeah, if you have a Christmas movie that you think should be in the 1001 Movies book, let us know. We'd like to know what you think as well. All right, gentlemen, now that we've reviewed Night of the Hunter, what else are you watching? Joey, it's been a while since we've had you on a regular show. What are you watching lately?
I am still watching Welcome to Derry, which is also all about children in peril. So far, so good. I just finished up The Chair Company, season 1 of The Chair Company, which I am happy to report will be having a season 2. And it seems to be, it's kind of like a sleeper hit on HBO Max. And if you like Tim Robinson and I Think You Should Leave, or even if I just mentioned that for the first time, or you liked him in Detroiters, go and search out like anything from I Think You Should Leave and watch, one of those 11-minute episodes or just even a segment that's on the internet. And if you like it, this cringy type of humor, you're probably going to be on board for The Chair Company. He takes the cringe humor and adds in a mystery. So, it's an ongoing mystery and, you do get answers, but then by the second to last episode, you think you know everything that's happening. And by the last episode, you're questioning everything. So it's a really interesting series. It's for adults. It doesn't overdo the adult content, I think. It's, I'd say most of the episodes are PG-13 until they're not. And so it has an even greater impact when things go, very NC-17. And so you will be caught off guard and you're going to love it, or you're going to hate it, or you're going to turn it off. I don't know. But, The Chair Company, 110% endorsed by me.
Any connection to the electric company?
Fucking zero.
Okay. Well, how about you, Tim? What else are you watching?
I took a break from movies and I sat down and I watched the recent season of Ghosts, at least whatever has been broadcast up to this point. So I'm kind of caught up there. Still enjoying that series. I like it a lot. Also sat down and finally watched Switching Gears with Tim Allen. And so on that one. Some of the cast I really like, some of the cast I don't like so much. So it's been getting steadily better as it goes along. I guess they've technically done 2 seasons, even though they're super, super short. Not sure if it's going to make it or not, but it's not his best, but probably not his worst ever. So I don't know. If you like Tim Allen, go watch it. If you don't, you're not probably missing much in your life. So that's pretty much what I can say at this point. I can't rave about it, but I can't diss on it yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I lean more towards Tim Allen from Home Improvement. After Home Improvement, I kind of stopped watching anything he did.
I like that second series he did. The was it
Last Man Standing?
Last Man Standing. Yeah, I like that series a lot. He was actually really good in that.
Well, guys, I have a diamond in the rough for you. So, as you guys remember, we did review Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I've been kind of in this 80s mood lately, and I've been watching a lot of stuff on Tubi, and I found this gem of a movie. It was made back in 1985, and speaking of gems, it stars Sharon Stone as well as Richard Chamberlain. And from Raiders...
Get the fuck out of here. King Solomon's Mines?
Yes, King Solomon's Mines.
Guess who starred in a 1991 TV movie remake of Night of the Hunter?
Was it Richard Chamberlain?
That's correct. And I really would buy his character not being into ladies.
Well, what I thought was rather interesting as I'm rewatching this movie again on Tubi, that John Rhys Davies, who played Sala in Raiders of the Lost Ark, is playing one of the bad guys in King Solomon's Mines. And as I'm watching this movie, there's a lot of like classic 30s, quips and action sequences, much like you see in Indiana Jones and those films. And I'm watching this, and every time the hero shows up on the screen and he's doing something, it has a very Indiana Jones-esque theme song playing. And I'm like, this is such. Don't get me wrong. I know that Alan Quartermain existed long before Indiana Jones, but watching this movie,
it's a blatant fucking ripoff.
Yeah, watch this movie. It feels like the Walmart version of Indiana Jones or the Temu version of Indiana Jones, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of having some fun watching this. So if you want to see
Great Value Jones,
yes. So if you want to see something that's just some classic 80s bad acting and some just something to shut your brain off and just laugh at and have a good time with, check out King Solomon's Mines on Tubi. All right. Well, Tim, you want to bring us home?
Thanks for listening to the Middle Age Movies Podcast and our review of The Night of the Hunter. We hope you enjoyed it because I know we were happy to lurk into the night to bring it to you. And if you did enjoy it, please subscribe, leave a comment, share with all your surviving friends. Help us to grow the MAM community so we can continue to keep you from wasting your precious death clock on crappy movies.
Follow us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Have a comment or suggestion, then email the show at mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com.
The real Harry Powers, who was hanged in Moundsville, West Virginia in 1932, lured his victims through the Lonely Hearts advertisements, claiming he was looking for love, but ultimately murdering them for their money.